Usually what happens is I just send it back to them. If I get an offer of contract, I send them an invoice. If I get an offer of contract from the government, I send them a notice of demand with an invoice. And you'll see in my paperwork package, there's copies of all the documents, not all of them that I've done a lot of documents. But there's copies of the procedures that I follow, and you'll see how I do it, and I attach, you know, my notice of demand with the criminal complaint. And you'll see some of them that have invoices in there.
Have you ever paid an invoice?
Sorry?
Have you ever paid an invoice?
Have I ever paid one?
Have they ever paid an invoice?
Oh no, they've never paid one, no. But it was basically it was the basis for me filing a commercial lien against them, and I haven't ever collected on that either. You know, maybe someday I will. My attitude is that while money is nice, we all need money. My agenda is to rein in my public servants and let them know that there's at least one sovereign out there, and they better be walking on eggshells.
What Glenn's doing is turning them into a debtor. When he sends them the invoice, they're the debtor, he's the creditor.
That's true. That's true. So anyways, it basically, it trumps any claim that they might have. You know, like my commercial liens, I brought them up in court. It's like they don't want to talk about them, okay? That's why I know they're valid, because I brought them up in court on several occasions, and it's like everything goes silent. We don't want to talk about that. They'll talk about anything else, okay? Or my common law copyright, they don't want to talk about that either, okay? They'll talk about anything else, but they never ever respond to that. See what I'm saying? I mean, that stuff is powerful, and I still, I mean, let's face it, I'm in the learning curve. If I could figure out how to enforce those things in their system, then I would. But you know, again, it's how much effort and time it has to go to, and my agenda is to rein in my public servants. You know. So, anyways, in December 2009, I was in a car accident in Arizona, and that was last December. And this lady made an illegal left turn. And the Pinal County Sheriff came on. This is interesting, because the Pinal County Sheriff came out. Now, Florence is the county seat for Pinal County, okay? And Florence is where they issued that warrant for the arrest of that straw man, right? And it turns out the chief judge didn't really quash the warrant. I think she ordered him to stay away from me, basically, I think is what happened, because the warrant was still out there. And the cops came, and you know, I told them, well, there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law, so I never did give them one. But I gave them a passport again. And based on that, they pulled up the straw man's name in the computer, and this warrant was there, right? And this was Pinal County Sheriff, right? Which is and Florence is the county seat. And so they pulled it up, and I heard them on the radio, and they were saying, yeah, there's a warrant, and but we don't want to extradite. I don't know why they need to extradite from, I was in Casa Grande. I was you know, like 20 miles from Florence, you know what I mean? And but they didn't want to extradite. They didn't want to have, and the Pinal County Sheriff, they had a supervisor that came out there because I didn't have a driver's license. And I heard them talking to two county sheriffs there, and they saying, yeah, I guess there's no driver's license in Texas. Actually, there is. But anyways, go ahead.
The extradition would probably be referring to the fact that you keep asserting that you're sovereign on the land. They would have to extradite you from the land into their maritime or their ship.
Maybe. But so anyways, what happened is you know, they made all sorts of threats, and they said, first of all, they said all persons had to have a driver's license. I said, well, I'm not a person. And they made all sorts of threats about this warrant and stuff like that, but they didn't take me in. And I walked away from it, and it was no problem. They said, you better take care of this, because it's only really, it's $300 I paid, $300 worth of extortion. And you know, they get a conviction on the straw man's record, and for disturbing the peace, and that's the end of it. Yes?
So what about the damages in the accident? Did you have to compensate the lady, or was it her fault?
It was her fault, and they paid for it. Matter of fact, I'm suing the insurance company right now because I've had some back problems since then, and I had to leave my last job because of it. So I, you know, I guess we'll see how much. I got a lawyer. I hate to say this, but I actually hired a lawyer. I hate lawyers, and this lawyer is suing them. So anyways, we'll see what happens. But I might be in a position where I never have to work again. So anyways, so that's what happened at that traffic stop. I think it's very, very interesting. Nelson, my son, used to drive around, had a black Dodge 4x4 truck, and in Texas, and it had Arizona plates on it. And he's a teenager, right? So he had a straight pipe on the thing, no muffler, and so diesels don't make a lot of noise, anyways, you know. But he'd be ripping around the streets and stuff like that, and the cops would stop him, and they'd always say, whose truck is this? And he'd say, oh, it's my dad's. They never give him a ticket. So, but in Texas, I sent everybody and their brother, you know, around where I was living. I was living in Keller, which is near Fort Worth, and so as chief of police, county sheriff, I mean, and there's a whole bunch of little cities and stuff around there, right? So I couldn't send them all to them all, but I was hitting a lot of chiefs of police and county sheriffs and chief judges and chief prosecutors, and they're called criminal district attorney. Well, the criminal district attorney gets one too, you know. You know, I'm a kind of in-your-face sort of guy. But anyway, so I like to invite them all to the party, and they know what's going on. They know exactly what's going on, and I never had a problem in Texas. One time I was in West Texas, and this is the only other time I've been stopped besides here in Canada. And I was in West Texas, and this cop stops me. He was a county sheriff out in West Texas, and he got me doing 87 in an 80. And he says to me, he says, you know, I got you doing 87 and 80. He says, do you have some reason for that? If I had been on the ball, I would have said, well, I mean, that's all in commerce, and so what's that got to do with me? But I didn't. I said, no. So then he said, well, I want to see your driver's license, registration, insurance. And I said, well, it's interesting that you asked that, because there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law. And I pulled out my court cases. And then I said, you know, first of all, before we get into this, I want you to know that I don't want you to take this personal. I said, I appreciate the work you do, and I don't have any idea what you make, but in my opinion, it's not enough. Because we need people to hunt down murderers and thieves. And he says, boy, you got that right. You know, as in, not enough, eh? Anyways, so I knew I kind of broke the ice there, but we talked for about, you know, probably about 15, 20 minutes, and my kids were in the van listening to all of this, and I never did give him anything, and ultimately he left, and he shook my hand when he left too, by the way. I told him, as one of the people, I want you to tell you that I appreciate the work you do, and I don't want you to take this personal. But he shook my hand and he said, please keep the speed down, you know, while you're in my county. I said, don't worry, while I'm in your county, I'll keep the speed down. And so I did. It wasn't, you know, about another 5 or 10 miles and I was out of his county. And but anyway, so there are at least 2 and possibly more classes of citizenship in all common law countries. The government has made perfectly good laws which are technically correct 99% of the time. Because we have given our servants in the government the right to presume certain things, the burden is now on us to defeat those presumptions. The best way to defeat any presumption is to go on the attack. Presumptions are taken in martial law. All presumptions are taken in martial law. The fact that they're presuming anything is proof that you're in a martial law jurisdiction, and they have no authority whatsoever. Right now, we've provided the government with reason to believe that we're not sovereign. I mean, we did it all. It's our own fault. The government is operating on that assumption based on prima facie evidence that we ourselves provided. We have to build a prima facie case that is admissible as evidence in court that we are sovereign. In today's world, in order to be truly sovereign, you must be prepared to force the issue up to and including court. In Rome, they had slaves because they were not prepared to live free or die. In the modern world, you do not have to die for your freedom, but the attitude helps. And that's one thing I tell them. Go ahead, send your hired thugs over to my house and have them take me out back and blow my brains out, because I'm not going away. And I'm going to file commercial liens, and I'm going to file criminal complaints, and I'm going to bring cases before a common law grand jury and a grand jury until I see you do that little dance they do at the end of a common law rope. And so if you're gonna perjure your oath of office, you better be prepared to take me out back and blow my brains out, because you'll wish you did by the time I'm done with you. And that's what I tell them.
It's good.
That's definitely bringing the slaves into the.
Live free or die. Live free or die.
The martial law, like, it's only implemented under certain circumstances, right? So obviously we've been, you know, running amok and not, you know, there's chaos. So I'm assuming that's why we have martial law, because we're not standing up and taking.
It's because the government's bankrupt.
Yeah, we're in receivership, and the creditor invokes the armies to make sure the collection takes place.
Yeah, that's essentially it. And I can show you, we're gonna get into that.
And the only reason I reference that is people talk about martial law could be implemented very soon, like, you know, people have voted on it and stuff.
Well, there's different kinds of martial law.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll go into that too.
Okay.
I'll show you the different kinds. And this is right out of the courts. So rule number 1 is educate yourself. And we're in this position because our parents and grandparents did not understand the issues. Study out the issues. Most lawyers do not understand the law. You can't expect a lawyer to understand, and if they did, they'd never admit it. Matter of fact, the lawyer, if he brings this stuff up, he'll get disbarred. So you never ever count on a lawyer to do this stuff for you. According to the former Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Earl Warren, 75 to 90% of all trial lawyers are either incompetent, dishonest, or both.
Those are good odds.
Yeah. All lawyers are officers of the court. When you have an officer of the court representing you in court, you have turned yourself into a ward of the court. And a ward of the court's an imbecile.
Oh, please help me.
The ultimate responsibility rests with you. We have to accept responsibility ourselves. You must accept responsibility for your own actions. You must prepare for your future. Sovereign citizens receive nothing from the government.